For many years, I didn't feel that I spoke with a lot of clarity. I was jumping around from thought to thought without any kind of intelligent connection to what I was saying, without finishing my sentences properly. My communication was jumbled and just all over the place. This lack of clarity in my communication made it really hard for me to get my point across, to establish credibility at work, and to get other people to understand what I was saying. So I spent a lot of time thinking about this problem, reading, researching, trying different methods to see what worked, and I've narrowed it down to some specific things which I'm going to share with you in this video. I hope these tips will benefit you and will help you communicate and speak with a lot more clarity at work and also in your personal life. The very first thing I did was expand my vocabulary. So I found that I was struggling to find the right words to explain what I wanted to say. And I also found that I wasn't using a very high level or sophisticated level of English. Around that time, I would watch interviews of business people and I was in awe at how sophisticated they sounded when they spoke. They would use words that were so intelligent, so eloquent, so descriptive, and I wanted to be able to speak like that as well. So what did I do? I expanded my vocabulary and I worked on this through reading and through listening. I researched words that I didn't understand. I took notes of the words that I didn't understand or that I rarely used. I used a small notebook to take notes of these words so I could add them into my communication. And over time, I would gradually use these words whenever I was in a conversation with someone, and over time they would become a natural part of my vocabulary and a natural part of my communication as well. This is one way I have elevated my communication, and this is a tip that is absolutely accessible to you as well. The second thing I did was remove unnecessary information in my communication. So I had a tendency to give people all of the information, every little detail, whether they needed to know that detail or not. I wouldn't just give them the most important points or the key takeaways. I gave them all the information I could possibly give them. What I realized after doing this for a while was that I was overloading people with too much information. I was getting them lost. I was getting them confused, and I wasn't helping them remember exactly what they needed to remember. All of this extra information, these unimportant details that you tell people, they simply distract them from the main message. It also makes you sound confused because you are not clear on what the main point is, and it makes your listener walk away from the conversation feeling confused as well. You can detect if people are thinking that you're giving them just way too much information, if they look confused, if they have a confused look on their face, or if they actually say to you, "Can you get to the point?" or "What is the point you're trying to make?" If you detect any of these things, then you are giving that person too much information. You need to reduce it down to the main points, the key points that you want to tell them. And in business, this is particularly important because business people are busy. They have a million things to remember and a million things to do. They don't want to be confused or distracted or have time taken up by you telling them unimportant information. So get straight to the point and give people the most important information only. The third tip I have for you is to communicate one thought at a time. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned that I would jump from thought to thought without any kind of intelligent connection to what I was saying. Sometimes this was because I was excited and I had exciting things to share with the other person. Other times it was because I had many things to say. But either way, this was a big mistake in my communication style because it made it extremely hard for the other person to follow what I was saying and for me to speak with clarity as well. I was putting too many thoughts out there at the same time. I started to pay attention to this bad communication habit. I became aware of it, so I started to detect it in my communication and in my conversations. And when I felt I was about to jump from one thought to another without finishing the first thought, I would pause. I would take a breath in and think about what I was going to say, and I would make a conscious effort to actually finish my previous thought in its entirety. This made it easier for the person I was with to understand what I was saying because I was actually finishing my thoughts and finishing my sentences properly, and it made me sound like I was speaking with a lot more clarity as well. I do hope you're enjoying this video so far. If you have liked the tips that I've shared with you already, then please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos and more content like this every week. My fourth tip is to keep the main point in mind. One of the reasons why I jumped from thought to thought and didn't sound like I was speaking with any kind of clarity at all was because I wasn't clear on what the main point I wanted to make was. Sometimes this happened during business meetings because I felt pressure to talk. I felt that I had to say something because I was in the meeting and others expected me to say something. So I would often start talking and just hope that while I was talking, I would discover what my main point was. But this isn't a very effective way to communicate, to simply operate on hope that you'll find out what your main point is. The only thing it will do is to cause you to communicate in a very jumbled way because you are constantly talking, trying to find out what your main point is. The only way to overcome this is to identify your main point before you start talking. If you need other people to speak first so you can have time to think and then eventually identify what your main point is, then that is absolutely fine. Sometimes what other people say will help you get clarity on the point that you want to make, or at least it will give you time to plan out your main message. Tip 5, use reading to improve your speaking. This tip is probably going to surprise you. You might ask yourself, well, how does reading help me improve my speaking? But honestly, this is the one that has probably made the biggest difference for me. You see, when you read, a number of things happen subconsciously that can help you speak better. You learn new vocabulary, you learn new sentence structures, you learn how to connect thoughts better together. And on a subconscious level, you take in all of this information that you can later use when you communicate. Rather than reading quietly to yourself, I recommend that you read out loud. Obviously, reading quietly does have a certain amount of impact on your communication as well, but reading out loud is probably the one that is going to have the most impact and the most positive impact on your communication because it forces you to repeat words, to repeat sentences, to repeat phrases. And this act of repeating in and of itself helps to program your mind in a different way. It helps you to think and speak in that way, which in turn helps you to communicate with more clarity. Tip number 6, use writing to improve your speaking. This is something that has helped me immensely in communicating with a lot more clarity because writing helps you gain clarity on your ideas. When you write down your ideas, you get time to organize your thoughts. This isn't the kind of opportunity that you get in spoken communication. You don't get this kind of time to organize your thoughts. And when you practice this skill through writing, over time, you will eventually be able to do it in your spoken communication as well. Another way you can use writing to improve your speaking is to use the process of active recall. This is where you read a chapter of a book, and once you have read that chapter, you summarize that chapter in your own words. You can use bullet points if you like, but what you are doing is you are summarizing what you've read in your own words. This helps you to remember what you've learned, to pull out the most important points, and to write it in a way that is clear and concise, which again, over time, will translate to your verbal communication as well, helping you speak with more clarity. I recommend you choose a smart book, preferably a non-fiction book for this purpose. One of the books I've done this with is called Mindset by Carol Dweck. I will put a link to it in the description below if you want to check it out. Tip 7, practice with interviews or documentaries. As well as developing your verbal communication through reading and through writing, you can also do it through watching, specifically watching interviews or documentaries. You'll want to choose an interview with an eloquent speaker, somebody whom you admire. Listen to their interview, analyze it carefully. What words do they use? What sentences do they use? How do they connect their thoughts? What intonation do they use? Do they use the pause? What body language or facial expressions or hand gestures do they use when they speak? Study and analyze their entire communication, both their verbal and their nonverbal communication, and write down what you notice. Practice by repeating what they say, and then incorporate these elements into your own communication. This is how you learn from the best and elevate yourself to become a clear, confident communicator. Articulation is a very important part of speaking with a lot more clarity. If that is something you want to learn about, then you need to watch this video right here where I teach you how to be more articulate when you speak. If you like what you've learned in this video, then please hit the like button below, subscribe to my channel for more videos like this every week to help you with your leadership communication. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.